The Valkyrie fleet had never encountered a species quite like humans. Commander Zelthor stood at the front of the bridge of his large ship. His blue skin reflected the light from the stars outside. He was 7 feet tall with 4 arms and silver eyes that blinked sideways. He watched as his ship moved closer to the human space station. It was small compared to Valkyrie stations, but the humans had built it with limited technology. "Commander, we are ready to dock," said his first officer. Zelthor nodded. "Proceed, with caution. Remember what the report said about these humans." The reports had warned the Valkyrie about humans. They said humans were unpredictable and possibly dangerous despite their simple technology. What the reports didn't mention was how humans could form emotional connections with anyone or anything. The Valkyrie ship connected to the Earth space station with a soft bump. Zelthor straightened his formal uniform and prepared to meet the humans for the first time. He had studied their language and customs, but meeting them in person would be different. The airlock door opened with a hiss. On the other side stood a small group of humans in blue uniforms. At the front was a woman with light brown hair cut to her shoulders and bright green eyes. She was at least 2 feet shorter than Zelthor, but she stepped forward without any fear. "Welcome to Earth Space Station Unity, Commander Zelthor. I am Laura Bennett, Chief Diplomatic Officer for the United Earth Council." She extended her hand, remembering too late that Valkyrie did not shake hands. She quickly pulled it back with a small laugh. "Sorry about that. Old habits." Zelthor tilted his head slightly, the Valkyrie equivalent of a greeting. "Thank you for receiving us, Officer Bennett." "Please call me Laura," she said with a warm smile. "We've prepared quarters for you and your crew. We hope they will be comfortable for your needs." Zelthor was surprised by her informal tone. Valkyrie diplomats never used first names with new contacts. It would be considered highly inappropriate. Yet the human seemed sincere in her friendly approach. "This way, please," Laura said, turning to lead them down the main corridor. "I'll show you to your quarters first, then give you a tour of the station." The human station was strange to Zelthor. While Valkyrie spaces were designed for maximum efficiency with no decoration, the human station had plants growing in corners, colorful paintings on walls, and personal items displayed in work areas. It seemed chaotic and inefficient. As they walked, Laura pointed out different areas. "That's our recreation room. We have games, books, and exercise equipment there. Your crew is welcome to use it any time." She smiled at the Valkyrie officers, who looked confused by the concept of a room just for recreation. In the diplomatic quarters, Laura showed them rooms that had been adjusted for Valkyrie physiology. The beds were longer, the lighting dimmer, and the temperature cooler. "You modified your standard quarters for us," Zelthor noted with surprise. Laura nodded. "Of course. We want you to be comfortable during your stay. If anything isn't right, please let us know." The Valkyrie had no equivalent concept. Visitors were expected to adapt to Valkyrie conditions, not the other way around. After settling in, Laura took them to the command center to meet the station commander, a tall man with dark skin and a serious expression. "Commander Zelthor, welcome. I'm Station Director Peter Wells." He gave a formal bow, having been briefed on Valkyrie customs. Suddenly, a loud alarm began to ring through the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "Status report," Director Wells demanded. An officer at a console responded quickly. "Sir, we have a systems malfunction in Sector 7. The artificial gravity is becoming unstable in the diplomatic wing." Wells looked concerned. "That's where we just placed our Valkyrie guests. Evacuate everyone from that sector immediately," he ordered. Laura turned to Zelthor. "We need to get your crew out of there now. The gravity could fail completely or worse, fluctuate wildly." As they hurried back toward the diplomatic wing, Zelthor noticed something strange. The humans were not securing their technology or important documents. They were running toward the danger, focusing only on getting people out safely. When they reached the diplomatic section, they found 2 Valkyrie officers trying to help Zelthor's aide, Kylen, who had fallen when the gravity began to shift. His leg was clearly injured. "We need a medical team here," Laura called into her communicator. "The section is becoming unstable," a voice replied. Everyone needs to evacuate now. Laura looked at the injured Valkyrie, then at the exit. Without hesitation, she moved to help Kylan. "I'll help you get him out," she told the other Valkyrie. Together, they carried the injured officer through corridors where the gravity shifted uncomfortably. Objects floated in the air, then crashed down unpredictably. A metal panel fell from the ceiling, nearly hitting Laura, but she continued helping Kylan without pausing. Once they reached the safe zone, medical staff took Kylan to the medical bay. Laura went with them, despite having a cut on her forehead from flying debris. Hours later, Zelthor found Laura still in the medical bay. She sat beside Kylan's bed, talking quietly with him as the doctors treated his broken leg. "Officer Bennett," Zelthor said, "you are injured. Why are you not resting?" Laura touched the bandage on her forehead. It's just a scratch. I wanted to make sure Kylan was comfortable. Being injured in a strange place can be scary." Zelthor studied her with confusion. "You risked yourself for a non-human. Why? Would you do this?" Laura looked genuinely confused by his question. "You're our guests. On Earth, that makes you our responsibility." She shrugged slightly. "It's what any decent person would do." Later that night, Zelthor sent a message to the Valkyrie High Command. He wrote, "The human behavior requires further study. They modified their station for our comfort. When danger came, they prioritized our safety over their equipment. The human named Laura Bennett stayed with Kylan through his treatment, providing what they call emotional support despite her own injury. They treat us not as temporary political connections, but as what they call guests with all the protection that implies." The High Command replied quickly, "This behavior is inconsistent with our understanding of intelligent species. Continue. Observation. Determine if this is diplomatic deception or genuine behavior." But as Zelthor watched Laura check on Kylan one more time before finally going to her own quarters to rest, he suspected there was something about humans that the Valkyrie had never encountered before in any species. The humans acted as if connections between individuals, any individuals, mattered deeply, regardless of species. It was the first sign that the Valkyrie understanding of humanity was missing something important, something that would change everything. 6 months passed since the Valkyrie first arrived at the human space station. During this time, humans and Valkyrie worked together on a new research facility that orbited Earth. The facility was large and shaped like a wheel. It spun slowly to create gravity for everyone inside. 32 humans and 14 Valkyrie lived and worked there, studying space and sharing knowledge about their different worlds. Frank Miller was in charge of security on the space station. He was a big man, with short gray hair and a long scar on his right cheek. He had fought in wars on Earth and did not trust aliens easily. Frank often watched the Valkyrie with narrow eyes and spoke to them with short, cold words. "You don't like us much, do you, Officer Miller?" asked Kai Leth, the lead Valkyrie scientist, one day in the dining area. Frank looked up from his coffee. "My job isn't to like you. My job is to keep everyone safe." Kyleth tilted his head in the Valkyrie way. "You believe we are a threat to the humans." "I believe anything unknown is a potential threat," Frank said. "Nothing personal." Despite Frank's cold attitude, the work on the station continued. Humans and Valkyrie made important discoveries together. Some even began to form friendships. Laura Bennett visited often from Earth to check on the diplomatic progress. "You see, Commander Zelthor," she said during one visit, "this is how peace is built. One day at a time, one project at a time." Zelthor was still puzzled by humans, but he was learning. He noticed how they celebrated birthdays together, shared pictures of their families back on Earth, and even included the Valkyrie in their Earth holidays. It made no sense to him, but he observed it all with interest. Then, on a quiet Tuesday, the unthinkable happened. The station's alarms blared suddenly. Red lights flashed in every room. People ran to their emergency stations. "What's happening?" Laura asked. She was visiting the station that day. "Asteroid impact," someone shouted. "A big one missed by our detection systems." The space station shook violently. Metal screamed as it bent and tore. A section of the outer ring cracked open, exposing that area to the vacuum of space. Emergency doors slammed shut, trapping the air in the rest of the station, but damage was spreading. Frank Miller's voice came over the emergency system. "This is Security Chief Miller. We have a major breach in Sectors 3 through 5. All personnel report to evacuation areas immediately. I repeat, all personnel to evacuation areas now." People rushed through the corridors. Some were injured from the impact. Others helped carry those who couldn't walk. The station continued to shake as systems failed one by one. In the control room, Frank looked at the damage reports with a grim face. The station was dying. They had evacuation pods, but after counting quickly, he realized there weren't enough working pods for everyone. He made a decision. All Valkyrie personnel to evacuation. Bay Alpha, he ordered over the comm system. All humans to evacuation Bay Beta. Move now, people. The group split up as ordered. In evacuation Bay Alpha, the Valkyrie found 6 pods in perfect condition. In Bay Beta, the humans found 8 pods, but 3 were damaged. Kyleth noticed this and used his communicator to call Frank. "Officer Miller, you have given us the better evacuation pods." Frank was busy typing emergency coordinates into the pod systems. "Your people can't handle oxygen loss as well as humans. Your organs shut down faster in low oxygen. It's just math." But it wasn't just math. It was a choice to protect others at risk to his own people. Kyleth stared at the human security officer. "You have not liked us." "Liking has nothing to do with it," Frank snapped. "Now get your people into those pods before I drag you in myself." As the Valkyrie boarded their pods, Laura helped organize the humans in Bay Beta. "The damaged pods have limited life support," she explained, "but rescue ships will come soon. We just need to hang on." In the last moments before launch, Frank moved through Bay Beta, checking each pod. He gave his emergency oxygen tank to a young engineer who looked scared. "You'll need this more than me, kid," he said, patting the young man's shoulder. "First space emergency, right? Don't worry. These pods are tough." When all pods were away from the dying station, they floated in space waiting for rescue. Inside the Valkyrie pods, the aliens watched through small windows as the station broke apart completely. Their pods had strong life support systems, keeping them comfortable while they waited. In the human pods, things were harder. The damaged pods leaked air slowly. People took shallow breaths to save oxygen. Hours passed with no sign of rescue ships. Frank's pod had the worst damage. He shared it with 4 younger crew members. As the air got thinner, he stayed calm, telling stories about his time in the Earth Space Force to keep everyone's minds off their fear. 14 hours after the accident, rescue ships finally arrived. They collected all the pods and brought everyone to a medical ship for treatment. Most had survived, but 3 humans had died from lack of oxygen. Frank Miller was one of them. The Valkyrie were confused by what happened next. Humans who hadn't even known Frank well cried for him. They held a ceremony where they talked about his life and his sacrifice. They sent messages to his family on Earth. The Valkyrie watched it all with wonder. "I don't understand," Zelthor said to Laura after the ceremony. "Officer Miller did not seem to like us. Why would he ensure our safety at the risk of his own people?" Laura wiped tears from her face. Frank was a complicated man. He didn't trust easily, but that didn't mean he wouldn't protect you. That's who he was. In Valkyrie culture, we would not risk our lives for non-kin, Zelthor admitted. It would be seen as wasteful. "Humans have a different view," Laura said. "When we work together, live together, share meals together, we start to see each other as connected, as worth protecting. It doesn't matter if you're not the same as us." The Valkyrie High Command was baffled by the human response to the accident. Why would humans sacrifice themselves for aliens? It made no sense in their cultural framework. They sent their top expert on other species, Dr. Mevlin, to study this strange human behavior. What Dr. Mevlin would discover about humans would change how the Valkyrie saw the universe forever. Dr. Mavelin arrived at the new temporary space station 1 week after the accident. She was tall like all Valkyrie, with light blue skin and silver eyes. But unlike other Valkyrie, she had spent years studying other species. She wore her hair in a human-style cut to seem more approachable. Her first task was to attend the memorial service for the humans who died in the accident. She stood in the back of the room, watching carefully. Humans wore dark clothes and many cried openly. They shared stories about the dead, especially about Frank Miller. "He saved my life," said a young engineer with tears running down his face. "He gave me his oxygen tank. He knew what would happen." A woman with short gray hair spoke next. "Frank was my friend for 20 years. He was tough and sometimes grumpy, but he always protected people who needed help. That's who he was." Dr. Mavelin was puzzled. These humans showed deep sadness for their lost companions. This was not unusual. Many species mourned their dead. But the humans also expressed sadness for how Frank had saved the Valkyrie, even though Frank himself had not seemed to like aliens. After the service, Dr. Mavelin approached Laura Bennett. "I do not understand." Officer Miller showed clear discomfort with Valkyrie presence. Yet he ensured our safety at cost to himself and his team. "Why?" Laura wiped her eyes. Frank was complicated. He fought in wars against other humans. He saw terrible things. It made him careful around anyone different. She paused. But Frank believed in duty. To him, everyone on that station was his responsibility. Human or Valkyrie didn't matter when lives were at risk. This explanation confused Dr. Mavelin even more. On her world, family connections were the only ones that mattered enough to risk one's life. The Valkyrie High Command wanted to understand if this human behavior was a weakness or a strength. To learn more, Dr. Mavelin was assigned to follow Sophia Ward, the lead engineer working on the joint human-Valkyrie technology projects. Sophia had dark brown skin, curly black hair, and quick hands that were always moving. She did not seem happy about being studied. "No offense, but I have work to do," Sophia said on their first day together. "Just stay out of my way." Dr. Mavelin followed Sophia from room to room as she fixed equipment and updated computer systems. She watched how Sophia interacted with both humans and Valkyrie. Sophia was direct with everyone, sometimes impatient, but she treated everyone the same way. After 3 days of silence, Sophia finally spoke to Dr. Mavelin while they ate lunch in the station's dining room. "So, are you learning anything about us strange humans?" she asked with a small smile. "Your species forms connections that are puzzling," Dr. Mavelin admitted. "You show grief for those who are not related to you by blood." Sophia nodded. Of course we do. Friends, co-workers, neighbors. Sometimes they matter as much as family. Sometimes more. "Even those from other species?" Dr. Mavelin asked carefully. Sophia put down her fork and looked at the Valkyrie scientist. "Let me show you something." After their meal, Sophia took Dr. Mavelin to her private room. It was small but filled with personal items. Sophia picked up a framed picture and handed it to Dr. Mavelin. The picture showed Sophia smiling with her arms around a large furry animal with 4 legs and a wagging tail. "This is Rex. He was my dog for 15 years. When he died 2 years ago, I cried for a week. I couldn't work. I couldn't eat. My boss gave me time off because he understood my grief." Dr. Mavelin studied the picture. "This is a non-sentient Earth animal, correct?" "Yes, dogs aren't like humans or Valkyrie. They don't build spaceships or solve math problems." Sophia took the picture back and looked at it with sad eyes. "But Rex knew when I was sad. He stayed by me when I was sick. He was happy every time I came home. He was family." Dr. Mavelin tried to understand. "But he provided no genetic advantage, no continuation of your bloodline." Sophia laughed softly. "That's not why we love, Doc. We love because something inside us connects with something in someone else. It doesn't have to make logical sense. It doesn't have to be about passing on genes. It's about the connection itself." Over the next few weeks, Dr. Mevlin saw many examples of this strange human behavior. She watched humans share food with each other, help each other with work, and comfort each other when they felt sad. More surprisingly, they extended the same behaviors to the Valkyrie on the station. One human, an older man named George Wilson, asked a young Valkyrie scientist about his family back home. The Valkyrie seemed confused by this personal question from someone not of his species. But George showed genuine interest, sharing pictures of his own children and grandchildren on Earth. "Family is family," George said. "Doesn't matter if you're from Earth or Valkyrie Prime. We all miss our loved ones." Dr. Mevlin noted in her reports that humans applied their concept of family very differently than Valkyrie. For humans, family could include blood relatives, people connected by legal bonds like marriage, close friends with no blood connection, co-workers who shared important experiences, even members of other species, most shocking to the Valkyrie. High Command was her observation that humans would risk themselves to the same degree for all these categories of family. This seemed irrational and dangerous. But as Dr. Mevlin continued her study, she began to see potential advantages to this human approach. When Sophia and her team faced a difficult engineering problem, they worked together with remarkable unity. No one tried to take credit alone. No one abandoned the group when work became hard. Their bond made them stronger. Near the end of her study, Dr. Mevlin asked Sophia a final question as they worked together on connecting Valkyrie propulsion technology with human navigation systems. "Do you consider Valkyrie to be potential family?" she asked. Sophia looked up from her work with a thoughtful expression. "Some of you, yes. I've worked with Kyleth for months now. We've solved problems together, shared meals, told jokes. Badly translated jokes, but still." She smiled. "If he needed my help, I wouldn't hesitate. That's what you do for people you care about." Dr. Mevlin's final report to the Valkyrie High Command contained an unexpected conclusion. The human capacity to form family-like bonds beyond biological connection is not a weakness as we first thought. It is perhaps their greatest strength. When humans decide you are family, they will extend to you the same care, sacrifice, and protection they give their own blood kin. This makes them both unpredictable and potentially valuable allies. Their approach to connection allows them to build unified groups across normal boundaries. We would be wise to learn from this rather than dismiss it. The High Command received this report with great interest. It changed how they viewed humans forever. And it prepared them for what would happen next, when the greatest test of human-Valkyrie relations would arrive unexpectedly from the stars. 18 months passed since the accident at the space station. During this time, humans and Valkyrie worked closer together. They built a new, better space station. They shared more technology with each other. Some humans even visited Valkyrie Prime, the blue-skinned aliens' home planet. Things were good between the two species. Then the danger came. The first warning reached Earth in the form of a desperate message from a Valkyrie ship at the edge of their space. The ship was damaged. Its message was broken and unclear. Something about an attack. Something about a species called the Drovik. 2 days later, clearer information arrived. The Valkyrie High Command sent an official message to Earth. The Drovik, a powerful and aggressive species from a distant part of the galaxy, had entered Valkyrie space with a large fleet of warships. They had already attacked 3 Valkyrie colonies. The Drovik were known to take over other civilizations. They did not destroy completely. Instead, they forced conquered people to work for them, to give them resources, and to fight in their armies. The Valkyrie faced the risk of becoming slaves to the Drovik. The message from the Valkyrie High Command was not asking for help. It was simply informing Earth about why communication might stop soon. The Valkyrie did not expect humans to get involved in their fight. Why would they? Humans and Valkyrie were not official allies. No written agreement said they had to help each other. On Earth, President Elizabeth Carter called an emergency meeting of the Earth Council. She was a tall woman with dark hair streaked with silver. Before becoming president, she had been a judge known for careful thinking. The council members sat around a large round table. On screens around the room, leaders from Mars colonies and the moon base joined the meeting. The room was tense and quiet. "The situation is serious," President Carter said. "The Valkyrie are facing an enemy that could destroy their civilization. We need to decide if we will help them." Alan Rivera, representing the Pacific Alliance, stood up. "With all respect, Madam President, this is not our fight. The Drovik have made no threats against Earth or any human colony. Why should we risk human lives for an alien species? We've only known them for 2 years." Many council members nodded in agreement. What Alan said made sense. Humans had their own problems to worry about. Maria Diaz, the European Union representative, spoke next. "We should consider the strategic view. If the Drovik defeat the Valkyrie, they might come for us next. Perhaps it's better to fight them now, with the Valkyrie as allies, than later alone." This also made sense to many in the room. Self-protection was a strong argument. The debate continued for hours. Some wanted to help the Valkyrie. Others thought it was too dangerous. A few suggested sending supplies but not soldiers. Finally, President Carter raised her hand for silence. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. Even the people on the screens went quiet, waiting for her words. "I've listened to all your views," she said. "The strategic arguments on both sides are valid, but there's something else we need to consider." She stood up and walked to the center of the room. "Over the past 2 years, our people have worked side by side with the Valkyrie. They've shared meals together. They've saved each other's lives. They've celebrated victories and mourned losses together." She looked around the room, making eye contact with each council member. "We've all read Dr. Mevlin's report on human bonding behavior. She found it strange that humans form family-like connections with people who are not blood relatives. But that ability is at the core of who we are as humans." President Carter picked up a small blue stone from her pocket. It was a gift from Zelthor, the Valkyrie commander, given to her during his visit to Earth. The Valkyrie scientists, diplomats, and officers who have lived among us are not just abstract allies. They are people our citizens have worked with, learned from, argued with, and yes, formed bonds with. Her voice grew stronger. "When humans decide your family, it doesn't matter if you have blue skin, extra arms, or come from across the galaxy. We stand with our family." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Maria Diaz spoke. "Are you suggesting we go to war for the Valkyrie because we like them?" President Carter shook her head. "I'm suggesting we help them because that's who we are. Humans don't abandon people we've broken bread with. It's not in our nature. Throughout our history, at our best moments, we've stood up for those we see as our own." Alan Rivera frowned. "This is a dangerous precedent, Madam President. We can't make military decisions based on feelings." "I'm not talking about mere feelings, Representative Rivera," President Carter replied. "I'm talking about the fundamental values that make us human, the capacity to see us where others see them." She returned to her seat. "I call for a vote. Will Earth stand with the Valkyrie against the Drovik threat?" The vote was not easy. Not everyone agreed. But in the end, most council members raised their hands in support of helping the Valkyrie. Earth had modern technology that could help in the fight against the Drovik. Most important was their quantum shield system. This new technology could block most weapon attacks. Earth had kept it secret, even from the Valkyrie, as a last defense for their own planet. Now humans sent this technology to protect Valkyrie worlds. Human ships moved to help defend Valkyrie space. Laura Bennett, who had first welcomed the Valkyrie to Earth, now led a diplomatic team to coordinate between human and Valkyrie forces. The Drovik were shocked by the human intervention. They had expected an easy victory over the Valkyrie. They had not planned for humans joining the fight. Their attack slowed down as they tried to understand this new situation. The war was still hard. Fighting spread across Valkyrie space. Many ships were lost on both sides. Nearly 300 humans died in battles against the Drovik, but the combined forces of humans and Valkyrie held strong. The Drovik, facing unexpected resistance, eventually pulled back. They sent messages asking for peace talks. After months of fighting, a treaty was signed. The Drovik agreed to leave Valkyrie space and not return. The message to the galaxy was clear. When humans decide you're family, they will stand with you against any threat. After the Drovik retreat, Zelthor met with President Carter on the new joint space station. The Valkyrie commander looked tired from the long war, but his silver eyes were bright with emotion, something rare for his species. "Why did you help us?" he asked her directly. "You had no obligation. No treaty required it." President Carter smiled, gently. "Because that's who we are, Commander. Humans make connections, we build bridges, we see family where others see strangers." Zelthor tilted his head in the Valkyrie gesture of deep respect. "My people will not forget what humans have done. You have changed how we see the universe, and how we see ourselves. The alliance between humans and Valkyrie, born not from strategic necessity but from genuine connection, would reshape galactic relations for centuries to come." 50 years passed after the Great War with the Drovik. Much changed in that time. Humans and Valkyrie became close allies. They built many joint colonies on new worlds. They created better ships that could travel faster between stars. Their scientists made important discoveries by working together. But the biggest change was not in technology or politics. It was in how different species across the galaxy started to think about each other. On the planet Nexus, a beautiful world with 3 moons that was far from both Earth and Valkyrie Prime, the Interstellar Concordat built its headquarters. The MEB Concordat was a new group formed by 12 species who wanted to work together for peace. Humans and Valkyrie helped create it after their victory against the Drovik. On this special day, thousands of people from different worlds gathered in the main hall of the Concordat building. The hall was huge with a glass ceiling that showed the stars above. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors waited for the ceremony to begin. At the front of the hall stood 2 important people. One was Amanda Phillips, a human woman with short red hair and green eyes. The other was Talarik, the Valkyrie Supreme Commander, tall and blue-skinned with the traditional silver eyes of his people. Amanda was the granddaughter of John Phillips, one of the humans who died fighting for the Valkyrie during the Drovik War. She had never met her grandfather, but his choice to protect another species shaped her life. She became a xenoanthropologist, someone who studies how different alien species live and think. Her work helped many species understand each other better. Talarik was once a young officer who survived the war. Now he led all Valkyrie military forces. But he was not like the old Valkyrie leaders who kept to themselves. He had spent many years working with humans and other species. He believed in the new way of thinking that came from the Human-Valkyrie alliance. Together, Amanda and Talarik stood before a large object covered with a blue cloth. The time had come to show it to everyone. "Friends, from across the stars," Amanda said in a clear voice that reached all corners of the big room. 50 years ago, our peoples faced a threat that could have destroyed the Valkyrie, and then perhaps turned on Earth next. But instead of fighting alone, we stood together. She looked out at the crowd. "My grandfather never met a Valkyrie before. He joined the defense fleet during the war. He had no personal connection to their world or their people, but he understood something important about being human, our ability to see family beyond blood, beyond species, beyond the stars themselves." Talarik stepped forward next. In the 50 years since the war, Valkyrie had learned to show more emotion, especially when speaking to other species. His voice carried a warmth that would have surprised the earlier generation of his people. "The Valkyrie did not understand humans when we first met them," he said. "Their willingness to risk themselves for non-relatives seemed strange, even dangerous to us. We now know it is their greatest strength." Talarik reached out and placed one of his 4 hands on the covered object. "The human idea of chosen family has changed our understanding of how different species can live together. It has even changed our own society. This was true in ways no one could have imagined 50 years earlier. After the war, Valkyrie began to adopt orphans from worlds hurt by natural disasters or conflicts. At first, only a few Valkyrie tried this new practice. Many thought it was wrong to raise children who were not of their blood. But over time, more and more Valkyrie families opened their homes to children who needed care, even children from other species. The most famous case was a human girl named Grace Wilson. She lost her parents in a terrible transport accident while they were visiting Valkyrie Prime. A Valkyrie diplomatic couple decided to raise her as their own daughter. Now grown up, Grace worked as a bridge between Earth and Valkyrie Prime, helping the two worlds understand each other better. Amanda and Talaric together pulled away the blue cloth. Under it stood a beautiful monument made from shining Nexus crystal. It showed two hands, one human, one Valkyrie, clasped together. Light from the 3 moons above shone through the crystal, making colors dance across the hall. This monument honors all who gave their lives in the Drovik War, Amanda said. But it also represents something bigger. It shows the power of seeing past differences to find connection. Talaric spoke again. The humans taught us that family is not just about continuing your genetic line. It is about connection, protection, sacrifice, and growth. It is about seeing yourself in someone different from you and realizing that differences need not keep us apart. After their speeches, representatives from all 12 species in the Concordat moved to a large table near the monument. There they signed an important new agreement called the Family of Worlds Concordat. This was not like old treaties that just said we will not attack each other or we will trade goods. This new agreement said something much deeper. It said that diverse species could form bonds of mutual care and protection, like a family spread across the stars. Under this agreement, worlds would share resources with those in need. They would defend each other from threats. They would work together to solve big problems like how to clean up damaged planets or how to help species whose homeworlds were dying. When the signing was finished, Amanda walked to the crystal monument. She placed her hand on it, feeling the cool, smooth surface under her palm. She thought about her grandfather who died before she was born, and about Frank Miller who gave his oxygen to save others on the space station long ago, and about all the humans and Valkyrie who built this new understanding together. A Valkyrie child, adopted by a human family after her world suffered a terrible earthquake, came up beside Amanda. The little blue-skinned girl looked up at the monument with wide, silver eyes. "Is that why my human parents wanted me?" the child asked. "Because humans think everyone can be family." Amanda knelt down to look the child in the eyes. "Yes, little one. That's the gift humans brought to the stars. We see family wherever we can make a connection. And that simple idea changed everything. Across the galaxy, the old ways of thinking, that only those like yourself could be trusted, that different meant dangerous, were slowly changing. Not everywhere, and not completely. There were still conflicts and misunderstandings. But a new idea was growing stronger with each passing year. When humans decide your family, it doesn't matter what planet you come from, or what your skin looks like, or how many arms you have. What matters is the bond you share. And that bond can change. World's the end.